Hello, everyone. It is Friday, the 13th of November. We are going to pick back up with Carly and Harvey and Thomas J. and see what's going on. We're going to pick up with chapter 14. So where we left off yesterday, Harvey and Carly wanted to go to the library. Mrs. Mason I don't know if she was trying to talk them out of it, but I think she was a little worried about them. She was trying to discourage them, saying it was all uphill and things like that. But they decided they wanted to go anyway. And I asked you guys the other day, maybe yesterday, why would Harvey want to go to the library? So let's see if we can find out. Chapter 14. I thought you came to the library to check out books, Carly said. Ever since they had arrived, Harvey had been at a back table looking through old New York Times magazines. Remember what was in that? Carly had flipped through 17 and Cosmopolitan, and then she had gone to the librarian's desk. Do you have any movie magazines? No. Comics? No. So now she was ready to go. Get some books and let's leave, she said to Harvey impatiently. I'm staying until I find the article I'm looking for, Harvey said, turning the pages in a determined way. What's it about? If you must know, the article's about my mother. What'd she do to get in the newspaper? Well, she went to live on this farm in Virginia with some people. They were going to start a new way of life, and that's what the article's about. I want to find out exactly where the farm is. What for? So I can write her. Why don't you just ask your dad where the farm is? He's bound to know. He had to send the divorce papers somewhere. He wouldn't tell me. He won't even talk about her. He bent over the magazine again. If my mom knew I was in a foster home, if she knew about these broken legs, well, she'd come get me. I know she would. And take you to the farm? Yes. Where you'd live happily ever after? Yes. Carly was silent for a moment. Then she said, Didn't your mom ever write to you? Oh, sure, she wrote. Well, wasn't there a return address? I never got the letters. Oh, sure, she wrote, but you never got the letters, just like my mom wrote, but I never got those letters. No, she really wrote. I know she did, only my dad tore up the letters. He closed the magazine and picked up the next. The article has to be in one of these. I'm getting bored, Carly said. Aren't there any cute boys in this town? She spun around. Hey, I think I'll see if they have Appalachian Nurse. She went back to the desk. Suddenly, Harvey came upon the article about the farm. When he saw the picture of his mother making the hammock, he felt as if his heart had blown up like a balloon. His mother was looking down at the ropes. She had a serious look about her. There were 4 rings on her fingers, but no wedding ring. He read the article carefully. Everyone at the farm, the article said, changed their names and selected other names that were more suitable to their nature. As near as he could figure out, his mother's new name was Bithynia. In the evenings, he read, everyone at the farm sat around and had discussions. Sometimes one person would sit in the center on a stool and offer himself for discussion. Everyone would then tell what they liked and didn't like about the person on the stool. Harvey had a hard time imagining his mother sitting there, letting herself be criticized. At home, the least thing made her furious. If his father called her casserole earth food, she sulked. Good news, Carly shouted, coming toward him. Appalachian Nurse. She waved the book in his face. And it starts out real good, too. Listen to this. Nurse Lori Myers made her way over the dark road. She was tired, but she knew men had been injured in the mine and needed her. Carly glanced up. Did you find what you were looking for? Yes. Oh, let me see. Which one's your mother? That one. I never pictured your mom looking like that. Hey, he's cute, that one to the left. She didn't look like that when she lived with us. Well, let's go then, she said impatiently. I want to get a Xerox copy first. He wheeled himself to the desk. Can you copy this article for me? It's 10 cents a page. I've got the money right here. He dug into his pocket. Carly said, listen to this. In the depths of the mine lay Michael. One of his arms was caught under a mine timber. Carly glanced up. See, they're begging Lori to go in because of the danger, but begging her not to go in because of the danger, but she's going in anyway. She flipped through the pages. This is really good. Here's the end. Michael looked at Lori. He must have gotten out of the mine, all right. He took her in his arms. See, Harvey, she even saved his arm. He said, my life will always be yours because without you, I would have no life. Lori answered softly, without your love, there is no life for me either. They kissed. Carly slammed the book shut. Now that's what I call a real satisfying story. She set it on the counter. The librarian came back and said, "That will be 90 cents, please." Harvey counted out the money and took the article about his mother. Carefully, he got the pages in order. As Carly pushed him to the door, he glanced up and said, "Oh, you forgot your book." She looked at him astonished. "I just read it." "You saw me." She opened the door, held it with her shoulder, and pushed him out into the sunlight. She sighed with satisfaction. "You know, it was almost as good as Hong Kong, nurse." Now, reading the first few pages of a book and then skipping to the end is not really what I would call reading a book, but that's Carly. Chapter 15. Harvey's father was coming for a visit, and Harvey was waiting on the front porch in his wheelchair. He was sitting still as a statue. "Carly, let him see his father alone," Mrs. Mason said when she saw Carly heading for the front porch. "I will." "Then stay in the house." "I'm going for the mail," she said. "The mail is already here, there on the desk." "Anything for me?" "No." "For Harvey?" "No." "What's wrong with the mail these days anyway?" Carly asked. "People are going to quit buying stamps if the post office doesn't start delivering letters." She kept going toward the porch. "Carly," Mrs. Mason warned, "I mean what I say. I don't want you out there when Harvey's father comes." "I won't be. I'll come back in the house as soon as he gets here. I just want to get a look at the kind of creep who would run over his own son's legs." "Who told you that, Carly?" "Harvey told me." She turned. "I wonder if he'll have the nerve to come driving up in the same car." Over her shoulder, she said, "Anyway, when the creep comes, I will come right into the house. Girl Scouts honor." Before Mrs. Mason could say anything else, Carly went out to the porch. She sat on the railing in front of Harvey. "Thank you." Harvey was too nervous to fidget. He was sitting with his hands tightly clenched, his teeth clamped together. He had not seen his father since he came to the Masons, and the only thing he could remember about his father was him weeping in the emergency room. His tears falling on Harvey's burning face had seemed to sizzle. "Is that his car?" Carly asked. "No." "Because I'm supposed to go straight in the house as soon as he comes. Mason's orders." Carly paused. She began swinging her feet back and forth. "Mail came, nothing for you or me." "I know." "Hey, maybe your mom's not at that farm anymore. Did you ever think of that? She could be anywhere." "Then I'll get my letter back. The return address was on it." "I know my mom got my letters. She just won't answer. For all I know, she's left the state." Excuse me. Carly kept swinging her legs back and forth, hitting the heels of her sandals against the railing. "If you weren't in that wheelchair, we could go looking for your mother." "What?" "Yeah," she said. She was pleased with the thought. "We could just take off. I'd really like to see the farm. I'm bored with this place anyway. Aren't you?" "Are you talking about running away again?" Carly looked at him. "Why do you have to make everything sound so bad? Run away. Nobody's going to run away. You've been watching too many Shirley Temple movies. We're just going to, take off, split." She glanced at the door to see if Mrs. Mason was within hearing. Then she turned back to Harvey. It really isn't a bad idea, Harvey. I couldn't go home because they'd pick me right up. But this farm? No." "Why not?" "For one thing, I'm in a wheelchair in case you haven't noticed." "Listen, the wheelchair would make it easier. It makes you look pitiful. Nobody would turn us down for a ride. I could step out and thumb, and you could hold up a sign that said, I couldn't do that." "Harvey, you could. Listen, I don't want to talk about it. But I don't want to talk about it." All right. We won't talk about it. You don't have to jump down my throat." She paused, then said, "Anything interesting in your lists today?" "What?" "Your list. Anything interesting?" "Oh, no." Harvey's eyes were on the street. His father would have to come over the crest of the hill. What's your latest list about?" "What?" Oh, Harvey touched his forehead. He was too nervous to remember. He said, I don't know. Let's see. It was just something I read that interested me. Nothing important." "What?" "I read everywhere that one day everybody will be famous for 15 minutes. Woohoo. If that's true, I wish my 15 minutes would hurry up and come. I am so bored. And I'm making a list of ways, if I get the 15 minutes of fame, the ways I would want it to be." "What do you want to do? Splash down in the Pacific in a rocket ship? Discover a new germ?" She straightened. "You know what I'd want? I'd want a 15-minute TV special. I'd come out in a low-cut, shiny dress like Cher, and I'd be so good that everyone would say, "Who is she?" And she's going to be a star. Carly grinned. That way, my 15 minutes would just be the beginning of a whole lot of 15 minutes. I'd stretch it out like an all-day sucker. Harvey was still looking at the top of the hill. I keep hearing a car, but I don't see it. Carly said quickly, How do you want to be famous? I don't know. I forget what I put down. He looked down at his legs. I just hope it's not for something bad. Like what? Oh, like maybe I've already had my 15 minutes. Maybe when my dad ran over my legs. He looked at Carly. I mean, everybody in town knew about it. Everyone was talking. People were driving past our house. Maybe that was my 15 minutes. Nah, they don't just drive past your house for 15 minutes, did they? Not if I know people. More like 2 or 3 days. Nah, you're going to be famous. Hey, you'll be a writer. I know you will. You'll write bestsellers. I don't know. Look, I was in the newspaper one time too. Only they just called me a juvenile. You think I consider that fame? A juvenile? No way. It's got to be more than that. You'll be a famous writer, and then you can write a movie for me, and I'll get to be the star that way. That's his car, Harvey said. He made a move as if he were trying to get to his feet. A pain shot through his legs. Are you sure? It's the same car. Carly got to her feet. Then I'll go inside as promised. At the door, she turned. If you need me, I'll be right inside the living room. She got serious. You wouldn't believe, Harvey, what good help I can be in a fight. That's a little unlike her. No sarcastic comment, no being mean. She was actually being nice and offering her help to Harvey. Chapter 16. Harvey watched his father coming up the walk. There was no expression on Harvey's face. Everyone had always told him that he looked exactly like his dad, and he realized it was true. Yet inside, he had always felt more like his mother. Well, how's it going, son? His father asked. He took all 3 steps in one bound. Then he looked uneasy, as if he wished he had taken more time. All right, Harvey said. His father cleared his throat. Looks like a nice place. His father was in the construction business, or had been until the building business went bad. It's all right. Any other kids here? 2. That sounds good. Company. He paused and cleared his throat again. Then he said more seriously, What kind of kids are they? They're all right. I mean, kids in a foster home. Well, you never know. I'm here, Harvey said. Oh, well, yeah. Harvey's father still had not looked directly at him. And the legs? He asked in a lower voice. They're all right, Harvey lied. Well, that's good news. He paused and then sat in a wicker rocker. He pulled at the turtleneck of his shirt. Look, about the legs. He still had not looked at Harvey. I don't want to talk about it. Well, I just don't know what got into me, that's all. Sure, I had just lost the contract. Sure, I had just had a couple of drinks. Sure, the car was new. But that still doesn't excuse it. No. It was quiet on the porch now. Carly had turned off the TV in the living room. Anyway, you seem to be getting on real well here, his father said with false cheer. I've never seen you looking better. Except for the legs. Oh, well, yeah, sure. There was another silence. Oh, guess what? I brought your birthday present. I didn't forget the big days this Friday. Oh, it's right out in the car, only I'm not going to let you see me carry it in. You might guess what it is. His father got to his feet abruptly. Well, what do you say? Let's go get something to eat. I don't know if I'm allowed. Sure you are, your own dad. He went to the door. Mrs. Mason. Carly's face popped into view as quick as a jumping jack's. I'll get her. She ran into the dining room. Mrs. Mason, Harvey's father wants to talk to you. He wants to know if Harvey can go get something to eat. It was a relief to Harvey when his father left. He felt as flat as an old tire. He could hardly wheel himself into his room. How'd it go? Carly asked. She was leaning against the doorway in another halter. So far, she'd made 11. Harvey lifted his shoulders and let them drop. What does that mean? It went all right, Harvey said in a flat voice. Actually, it had never been all right, but the worst moment had come in the restaurant when Harvey had said, I wrote a letter to my mother telling her what had happened. He hadn't planned to say it. It just slipped out. His father had swallowed hard and wiped his mouth with his paper napkin. Did you? He asked. There was no expression in his voice. Yes, but I haven't heard from her. You won't. I think I will. Harvey put down his fork and looked up at his father. He said, she probably wrote to me dozens of times over the years, only you never gave me the letters. This was something he had always suspected. He'd even searched the trash cans for scraps. She never wrote you. I don't believe that. Harvey was holding his fork in both hands as if he was going to snap it in two. She wrote and you tore up the letters. You probably flushed them down the toilet. He had looked across the restaurant at a fat woman begging her thin son to eat just one more French fried potato. Look at me, son. Harvey's father's voice sounded so low and strange that he had to look. She never wrote you, he said. Not one time. He pronounced every word carefully. She would write if she knew I had 2 broken legs. She didn't write when she knew you had the appendectomy. She didn't know about that. I wrote her. How about the measles? I wrote her then, too. And she didn't answer? No. I don't believe you. No. As soon as his father said no in that way, Harvey knew it was true. He suddenly felt old and tired. He looked down at the fork in his hands. A moment before, he had felt as if he could snap it in two. Now he could no longer even hold it. He let it drop to his plate. He looked up at his father, taking in all his features. Maybe, he thought, it was because he looked so much like his father. Could his mother, hating his father, hate him too, just because of his looks? She was always saying, you're your father's son. And he had known it was not a compliment. But could she hate him because of his looks? Eat your supper, son. All right. Is your steak too tough? No. We'll eat. Harvey picked up his fork. He barely had the strength to move his baked potato. Finally, he managed to cut his potato so it looked eaten. Excuse me. And to hide some of his steak. Sorry. But he couldn't eat a bite. Carly was still standing in the doorway. Where'd you eat? She asked. Bonanza. Lucky. We had tuna casserole. One night, I'm going to make tacos for everybody. Boy, are they good. Carly stood in the doorway watching Harvey's back. Harvey was trying to get the strength to lift himself onto his bed. He wished for one of those special hospital lifting bars. Carly said, oh, by the way, one of the Benson twins died today. You know, the old ladies Thomas J. used to live with? She came into the room. Or did you hear about it? No. Heart failure. Oh, sorry, guys. It was Jefferson that died. Hey, and guess what the other twin's name was? I can't. Thomas, get it? Thomas and Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, she hooted with delight. Woohoo, how's that for names? You know, one time somebody told me they knew twins named Pen and Pencil, but I didn't believe it until now. Harvey sat silent in his wheelchair, hunched forward like an old benched player. Kind of like that. Thomas J. is leaving in the morning to see the remaining twin and go to the funeral and all. She sighed. Everybody here is having some excitement in their lives but me. You go off to Bonanza and Thomas J. to a funeral. She paused. Harvey was still staring at his bed. I don't think I can make it, he said. What? Oh, you want to lie down? Here, I'll help you. She started forward. No, I don't think I can make it, period. Carly stopped in the middle of the room when she realized Harvey was talking about more than getting in bed. Harvey, you have to make it. I really don't think I can. Because Harvey, listen, you're one of us. You and me and Thomas J., we're a set. And I've got used to you, Harvey. When I get used to somebody, I don't want anything to happen to them. She walked over to his wheelchair. Sorry. Look at me, Harvey. No, look at me. He glanced up. His face was pale. His eyes were dull. His lips had a smudged look. I promise you can make it, she said. He lowered his eyes. And I don't make promises easily, Harvey. Listen, I promise you can make it. After a moment, he said, I really don't think I can, in a flat voice. Carly stared at Harvey. Then she closed her eyes. She said, you know, when I get my driver's license, the first thing I'm going to do is find your father and run over his legs. See how he likes it. She stamped out of the room and into the kitchen. I never thought I'd say this, Mrs. Mason, but give me something to do. You want to work, Carly? I've got to take my anger out on something. And that's the end of chapter 16. So I told you guys I kind of felt bad for Harvey. Okay. So his mom didn't write or anything. And I believe his dad's telling the truth and that he did write to her and she didn't write back. So that's pretty sad. We will pick up. Oh, what do you guys think he got him for his birthday? Think about that. And keep thinking, do you think anyone's going to stay at the Mason's house permanently? And then poor Jefferson, that's sad. I didn't want to ask y'all that question earlier. I wanted it to kind of a little bit shocking. So do we think that the twin Thomas will make it, or do we think she will pass too? We'll find out. We'll pick up again Monday, and we will get finished on Wednesday. Have a fantastic Friday. See you guys Monday. Bye.